Princesses Alexandra, Dagmar, later Maria Feodorovna of Russia, and Thyra were born to Prince Christian of Schleswig-Holstein-Sonderburg-Glücksburg, later King Christian IX of Denmark, and Princess Louise of Hesse-Kassel. Christian's children married widely across Europe. He was famously nicknamed the father-in-law of Europe because 4 of his 6 children wed into other royal houses. Alexandra was the eldest daughter, Dagmar, born 1847, the second daughter, and Thyra, the youngest. Along with their siblings, which included Prince Frederick, later Frederick VIII of Denmark, and Prince William, later King George I of Greece, the 3 sisters grew up in modest circumstances in Copenhagen. At the time of their early youth, their father was a Danish army officer of limited means, and the children lived in the modest yellow palace near the harbour. The royal children often helped each other and learned practical skills. For example, the girls made their own clothes or stockings and were educated at home by Queen Louise, who taught them music and languages, while Christian oversaw their physical exercise. The celebrated storyteller Hans Christian Andersen was a family friend who frequently visited and read to the children, making their Danish childhood especially remarkable. In these early years, the sisters were known to be lively, boisterous girls with good manners and a sense of humour, often playing together and even dressing alike in identical outfits. When King Frederick VII died childless in 1863, Prince Christian succeeded as King of Denmark, and the Danish princesses were suddenly thrust into the public eye. Alexandra's marriage prospects attracted particular interest. In 1863, Alexandra, then a 19-year-old princess, married her second cousin, Albert Edward, Prince of Wales, the future Edward VII, at St. George's Chapel, Windsor. Queen Victoria insisted on Alexandra because of her royal blood and Protestant faith. Princess Alexandra's life changed dramatically when she arrived in England in 1863. As the young Princess of Wales, Alexandra, often called Alex to family, immediately charmed the British public with her beauty, graciousness, and poise. Poet laureate Alfred Tennyson famously dubbed her the Sea King's daughter from over the sea to praise her virtues and foreign grace. Alexandra's fashionable presence and elegance quickly made her an international style icon. Contemporary accounts note that everything she wore, from dresses to hairstyles, became widely imitated, and even her later physical disability, a slight limp caused by childhood rheumatic fever, became a celebrated Alexandra limp that was copied by London society. Alexandra and Edward, the future King Edward VII, had a long marriage with 6 children. 5 survived infancy: Prince Albert Victor, Duke of Clarence, Prince George, Duke of York, the future George V, Princess Louise, Princess Victoria, and Princess Maud. A 6th child, Prince John, died as an infant. Despite the couple's personal difficulties, Edward maintained many mistresses, of which his wife was painfully aware. Alexandra devoted herself to her children and to royal duties. She was a loving mother. Contemporary accounts describe Alexandra as actively engaged with her family's daily life and passionately fond of her children's hobbies and health. Even during Edward's long infidelities, Alexandra kept a cheerful public face and once remarked privately, "He loved me the most." In private, she found solace in her art and hobbies, especially photography. She taught herself to use a camera and spent countless hours taking and colouring family photographs, later publishing an album of images to raise funds for charity. When Edward ascended the British throne in 1901, Alexandra became Queen Consort. In this role, she was beloved for her charitable works and modern sensibilities. As Queen, she used her position and personal wealth to support the poor and the military. Notably, she founded the Imperial Military Nursing Service in 1902, predecessor to the Queen Alexandra's Royal Army Nursing Corps. and established an annual Alexandra Rose Day to raise money for hospitals. Alexandra often substituted for the aging Queen Victoria at public events, opening bazaars and attending charitable functions. Victoria herself later praised Alexandra's tireless service, noting that she never complains, but endeavours to prove that she has enjoyed what to another would be a tiresome duty. Throughout her reign and afterward, Alexandra retained her trademark charm and diplomacy, smoothing over court tensions, for example navigating her loyalty to Denmark while serving Victoria, and endearing herself to her subjects. Alexandra's personal life held both joys and sorrows. Aside from caring for her children, she suffered from chronic health issues. In 1867, she contracted typhoid fever while pregnant with her first child, which left her partially deaf and permanently lame in one foot. Nonetheless, she continued her active public life. In the 1890s, she endured personal tragedies. Her eldest son, Albert Victor, died suddenly in 1892 at age 28 from influenza, and her youngest surviving child, Prince John, died as an infant. These losses, as well as the end of Edward's reign in 1910, did not diminish Alexandra's public popularity. As Queen Mother, mother of the new King George V, she continued to engage in charity and family life. In World War I, she played a sensitive role, being both British and a first cousin to the German Kaiser. Although she expressed patriotic support for Britain, she maintained dignified neutrality and concern for all her nephews on the battlefields. In her final years, Alexandra lived quietly at Sandringham and Marlborough House in England. She devoted time to her grandchildren and continued to follow charitable causes, though she increasingly suffered from frailty and deafness. Queen Alexandra died on November 20, 1925, at Sandringham, aged 80. She left a legacy as one of Britain's most beloved royal consorts, remembered for her beauty, grace, and dedication. Numerous institutions, such as Queen Alexandra Hospitals in London and Portsmouth, and charitable funds bear her name today, honouring her lifelong commitment to nursing and social welfare. Princess Dagmar of Denmark, born Maria Sophia Frederica Dagmar, embodied Scandinavian grace at the Russian court. After accompanying Alexandra to England in 1863, Dagmar was herself betrothed to the Russian heir, apparent Nicholas. When Tsarevich Nicholas died in 1865, Dagmar married his brother Alexander in 1866. She converted to Russian Orthodoxy and took the name Maria Feodorovna. As the wife of the Grand Duke and later Emperor of Russia, Maria Feodorovna was known for her elegance, strong will, and filial devotion. When Alexander became Tsar in 1881, following the assassination of Alexander II, she was crowned Empress and quickly acclimated to her role. Maria Feodorovna's marriage to Alexander III was reported to be happy and affectionate. Contemporary accounts describe Alexander as a blunt but loving father and husband, and Maria as a warm and devoted partner. They had 6 children: Nicholas, the future Tsar, Nicholas II, Grand Duke Alexander, who died in infancy, Grand Duke George, who died young of illness, Grand Duchess Xenia, Grand Duke Michael, and Grand Duchess Olga. The Romanov children were raised simply and affectionately at the imperial residences. Empress Maria kept a close, hands-on family life and rarely involved herself directly in politics. She famously took a personal interest in charity and education. She became head of the Empress Marie's institutions, a department of girls' schools, orphanages, and hospitals, and fundamentally reformed it to expand schools and relief centers across Russia. She also was the first female head of the Russian Red Cross, having trained as a nurse during the Russo-Turkish War of 1877–78, and improved its effectiveness during her tenure. In these ways, Maria Feodorovna quietly wielded her imperial influence to benefit children and the poor, becoming a beloved figure among many Russians for her compassion. Despite her domestic focus, Maria Feodorovna lived through an era of tremendous upheaval that brought deep personal grief. In 1881, just days after her father-in-law's assassination, she and Alexandra took extra security precautions, living away from the Winter Palace due to revolutionary threats. In 1894, her husband's health deteriorated rapidly, and she nursed him devotedly until his death that November. When Nicholas II became emperor, Maria Feodorovna remained as Dowager Empress, advising her inexperienced son on matters like the Russian policy in Finland. Her own native-born sentiment favoured Finnish autonomy. However, the most painful chapter came in 1917. The Russian Revolution forced Nicholas to abdicate, and in 1918, the Bolsheviks executed Nicholas, his wife Alexandra, their children, and many other relatives. Maria Feodorovna, by then living mostly with her brother, King George III of Greece, escaped before the murders, aided by her Danish family. As one historian notes, Maria Feodorovna's life was marked by being the Lady of Tears in Europe. She witnessed her brother King George III of Greece assassinated, her husband die young in 1894, her son abdicate and be killed, and many members of her family perish in revolution. Throughout these tragedies, Maria maintained dignity and stoicism. After World War I ended, she left Russia, first going to England, and in 1919 settled permanently in Denmark. In exile, she lived at her Villa Vidø near Copenhagen, surrounded by memories of her Danish childhood. Even in her final years, she remained active in charity and family correspondence. Empress Marie Feodorovna died in 1928 at age 80, closing a life that had spanned 2 crowns and seen the fall of an empire. Princess Thyra of Denmark led a more secluded life compared to her sisters, but one equally shaped by political events. Thyra was courted by various European princes, including a flirtation with Britain's Duke of Connaught and even King William III of the Netherlands. But in the mid-1870s, she met and became engaged to Ernst August, the exiled Crown Prince of Hanover. Ernst August's kingdom had been annexed by Prussia in 1866, so his family maintained royal titles in exile. Thyra and Ernst Augustus were married on 21 December 1878 at Christiansborg Palace in Copenhagen. After their marriage, Thyra became Crown Princess of Hanover in pretense. She and her husband built a life at Schloss Cumberland in Gmunden, Austria, raising a large family there. Thyra and Ernst Augustus had 6 children between 1879 and 1887. Princess Marie-Louise, Prince Georg, Princess Alexandra, Princess Olga, Prince Christian, and Prince Ernest Augustus, later Duke of Brunswick. 2 of Thyra's sons died young, Prince Georg in a 1912 accident and Prince Christian in 1901, but her daughters married into other noble families, and her youngest son eventually married into the Prussian imperial family. Thyra's own upbringing had not been without challenge. In 1870, when Thyra was 17 years old, she became pregnant by Wilhelm Frimand Marcher, a Danish cavalry officer. The affair was kept secret because of the immense scandal it would have caused for the Danish royal family. At the time, her father Prince Christian, soon to become King Christian IX in 1863, had just risen from a relatively minor princely position to the Danish throne, and his daughters' reputations were crucial for securing royal marriages across Europe. Thyra was sent away quietly to Gotha, Germany, where she gave birth in fall 1871 to a daughter. The child was christened Marie, often referred to as Maria or Marie Thyra. To avoid scandal, the baby girl was immediately adopted by a German family named Zarens, who raised her as their own under the name Maria Louise Katharina Adler. Later genealogical research uncovered her true parentage, but during Thyra's lifetime, this remained a closely guarded secret. As for the father, Captain Marcher, the situation ended tragically. In 1872, when the affair came to public notice within Denmark's upper circles, Marcher was court-martialed for conduct unbecoming and committed suicide by shooting himself. This devastating event haunted Thyra for the rest of her life, and later she reportedly suffered recurring bouts of ill health and depression. Nonetheless, her marriage to Ernst Augustus was considered genuinely affectionate and lasted until his death in 1923. In public, Thyra was never crowned queen. Hanover no longer had a throne. But she was sometimes styled Queen of Hanover by courtesy and remained close to other royals. After World War I, Thyra's life settled quietly. She and her husband had largely withdrawn from politics, though the war did sever ties with their British relatives. Ernst Augustus lost his British titles for supporting Germany. Thyra outlived her husband by 10 years, and she spent her final days at Schloss Cumberland. She died there on 26 February 1933 at age 79 and was buried beside Ernst Augustus in the family mausoleum. While Thyra had no kingdom of her own, she left a dynastic legacy. Through her children and grandchildren, she became an ancestor of later European monarchs, including King Constantine II of Greece, Queen Sophia of Spain, and King Felipe VI of Spain. Thyra's life, though lived mostly out of the public eye, was interwoven with the royal history of Europe through these family ties. Each of the three sisters, Alexandra, Maria Feodorovna, and Thyra, stood at the crossroads of great empires. Through their marriages and motherhood, they linked Denmark to the courts of Britain, Russia, and Germany. Their personal stories of youthful promise, royal duty, private love, and public service reflect the tumultuous era they lived through. By the end of their lives, all three had witnessed the collapse of the old order of Europe, yet each maintained her own quiet influence. Today they are remembered as examples of grace under pressure. Queen Alexandra for her compassion and style, Empress Marie Feodorovna for her charity and dignity, and Princess Thyra for her loyalty and maternal devotion. Their lives, intertwined by blood and circumstance, form a unique chapter in European royal history.